Welcome to another episode of my story. My guest today holds a position in corporate. She's a life coach, a mom, a wife of a minister on a university campus. She holds a position in corporate. Welcome to the set of my story, the beautiful Lelethu. Lelethu, welcome.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. It's such an honor and a privilege for me to be sitting with you today.
And thank you for accepting the invitation, which came via somebody very dear to both of us. So Lelethu, I looked up the meaning of your name. Of course, it's South African origin. You were born in a little village in the Eastern Cape in South Africa, and your name means it is ours. Ours belongs to us. The institution and enlightenment. No wonder you're a life coach. So tell us a little bit about growing up in a village, going to boarding school from the age of 5, and how was life in a little village?
No problem. Thanks so much for that introduction. It made me go, oh, that is just so sweet. So yes, I am from the Eastern Cape. I was raised in a village called Qoqotala. I have a younger sister who's 5 years younger than me. I'm always trying to figure out how old she is. And yes, I went to boarding school from the age of 5. One of the greatest things about being raised in a village is the freedom. I think I have memories about how me and my friends used to ride the bicycle, how we would leave home in the morning and then just make it back just before dark. Yes, especially when we lived with my gran, because we lived with her in Qoqotala, another village with all my cousins. And that was the best because we used to wake up at 5, we used to milk the cows because my grandma did not play and we all had jobs to do. And then we'd go and play, get dirty, then come back home. And so we grew up having these special relationships with my cousins, and I absolutely just love that.
When I think of village life, I think of rural and space.
Yes.
And not confined like in a residential area or in city life.
Yes.
And so for a child, that must be the utmost freedom and joy, and being with all these little kids in a village.
It was the best because also, like you're saying, we had no electricity actually for a couple of years. So probably, I think only in grade 4 we had electricity. So before then, I have memories of me and my sister and my cousin. We used to go put on the generator, and then at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. so that the diesel doesn't finish, then we go and we switch it off again. And it's very spacious. So we just ran. We had freedom.
What
we
fun
had
memories.
Space to play. It was, even now, I'm just beaming, just thinking about it and just looking back.
I can see on your smile. Lelethu, then life wasn't without challenges. Whose life is without challenges? And you were raised by a single mom. You and your sister, raised by a single mom, and a mom who did not have education because girl children had to help in the home and help in the village, and it was a norm. And an absent father. So today, as a married woman, as a wife, as a mummy, you have a husband and you have 2 little boys. If you compare your growing up to your children's growing up, tell me about absent fathers, what that did to you, and what you see the advantages of your children having a daddy.
You know, it's a story I think in my own life I've had to really work through in terms of my dad, because I say absent father, but he was there for a bit. I think that's what hurts the most. So for the first bit of my life, he was there, he was present. He was the person actually I would run to. when things happened. So it's the same. Like I said, I was at boarding school from a very young age. So my mom would come fetch me and I would be so upset. Like, why are you here? And then we'd go to town and I see my dad and I would just jump out the car and I'd go into his car because that's the relationship we had. And I think that's where I learned what a primary relationship looks like. So in him, I felt safe. I felt that I could be. And that's why when he ultimately walked out without explanation, it cut me deeply because I was lost. I think for the longest time, I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I did something to make my father leave me and my sister. It was very confusing because even in his leaving, he didn't completely leave. So he left, and then there was this period in our lives where my sister and I would come back on a Friday. She was at home at this point, and then I come home on a Friday and my dad was there, and then some Fridays he wasn't there. And then that consisted of a lot of things happening between my parents, and then suddenly one day he just disappeared. No word from him, no word from my mother. And I think that's where our guilt came in, because it was different. No one said, Dad's gone, but we love you. You are important to us. He was gone, and I feel like I was left to pick up the pieces and to figure it out.
And process.
Yes, to process, but then through processing, being angry with my mom because I felt like it was her fault, because my mom, like me, is passionate, So in their conversations, she was the one that was always raising her voice, and I didn't know the backstories, obviously, at that point. So I grew up being angry at my mom. I grew up feeling abandoned.
Yeah.
And I grew up feeling like ultimately I wasn't enough. And like I don't belong. It's weird that you said my name means ours.
Yes.
Because whose was I ultimately? And so that for me, I think, was just the difficulty in it. So trying to find myself in this mess.
So how old were you at this stage when this was happening?
I can't even pinpoint it. I just know that it was in primary school, because in primary school I used to come back every Friday. So I was a weekly boarder, so I boarded Monday to Friday. Then we had to be fetched by our parents on a Friday, and I went back on a Sunday. So that's also the confusing thing of, actually, my sister and I, when we share our stories, they're so different. And she remembers it differently. And I can't even say in grade 5 he left, because it was so confusing in my life. But I know that ultimately, probably by like grade 6 or 7, I'd stopped seeing him. And then that was majority of my high school. And then I'd bump it. I mean, Queenstown's small. So either I'd see him from a distance. And, pretend like I didn't see him. So that was ultimately what my childhood did. And now you asked what it's like having kids and a father. Rhonda, it's the most beautiful thing. Because I grew up not wanting to get married. So there was 2 things I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to get married, and I wasn't going to love anybody. Because to me, love was something that ended, and love was something that hurt you. And if my father could leave me ultimately, then anybody else could leave me. And that's where I had functioned from. So when I went to varsity, that's when I think the healing began. Because I remember my leader, because I was just dating boys. And then once it was serious, I was like, oh no, it's fine.
And you bailed.
Yes, this is good. Goodbye. And that's how I functioned. And I remember my leader said to me, I think you need to see someone. Here's a Christian lady. And, and I think that's where I realized that I've got father issues, I've got trust issues, I've got abandonment issues, and I needed to ultimately work through those. And at this point, I knew my husband, Cameron, and we were friends at this point. So it's also a God-ordained moment and a God-ordained thing that I was ultimately able to work through my things and work and just to meet God.
So that's what I wanted to ask.
Yes.
So when did God come into your life? When did that fatherhood take place?
Yes. So interesting story. In grade 10, I became a Christian. But I went to my leaders and I said to them, "Hi, I'm a Christian." And it's the weirdest thing. They gave me this book and then they were like, "Read this, good luck." Never heard from them again after that. So try to figure out faith myself. And I think it was in varsity that my relationship with God just changed, that I understood what fatherhood was.
Love unconditionally.
Yes, unconditional love. And that's when I think I ultimately started changing. And that's when then obviously I got married, which was a big thing, you know. Even my mom, she literally sobbed. She wept when I told her I was getting married. And
That
she
you were
said,
in love.
"Why?"
Yes.
She said to me, "Why? Why would you do that?" You know? And I said to her, "It's because of God, you know." So for my mother, my engagement, 'cause also I was 21, almost 22, so I was young. So for my mother, it was a hard time because she just said, "Do you know what you're doing?"
Because of her hurt.
Yes.
And her past.
Exactly.
And her pain.
Exactly.
And I think she just wanted maybe to protect you.
Yes.
From that.
Exactly. Which she did, because one thing I know is that my sister and I mean everything to my mother. And there's nothing she wouldn't do for us. And that's what that was. She wanted to protect us. So fast forward, we got married, and I think to go back to that fatherhood, watching Cameron father our boys is
I like it that you say it's a beautiful thing.
It's beautiful, Rhonda. It is beautiful because, I mean, I never knew that and I never saw that. And Cam's different because his dad was there. And to see him being present, to see him love our boys, play with them, and teach them what it means, to be in a relationship with God, what it means to love, what it means to forgive, and all those things for me has been the greatest gift, honestly. It's been the most beautiful thing. So I'm grateful to the Lord, and I don't take it for granted that my kids have a father. And I often say that to Cam, and I say, I am so grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're present. I'm grateful that you're here, because you are giving our kids such a beautiful gift.
And that affirms his fatherhood.
Yes, it affirms that.
And affirms him.
Yes, it affirms him, and it's just the story of God's redemption.
I love that. I love that.
How he's taken it and he's making it beautiful ultimately.
Lelethu, I wanted to briefly touch on your mom going back to school in her later years, and how education became key for her, and that she set the bar for you and even maybe your sister to follow suit. So if you could just quickly tell us, when your mom went back to school and then your education, a little girl from a rural village who have the opportunity to go to university, and there may be someone listening today, a young girl, a teenage girl, an older woman who thinks that I can't. It's too late. It's never too late, is it?
It's never. So my mother is the epitome of it can be done. So she is a woman that did it and continually does it. So at the age of, so she was 29 when she had me, so 29 plus 5, that's how old my sister was. She decided that she was going to go back to varsity. So when she grew up, she couldn't go to school because she's got 4 brothers. So she was expected to do the work. And then because my uncles were not serious about school, my grandpa was like, okay, fine, you've been nagging me. Go. Child. Do the things, and that's what sort of happened. And then my mom went back to school, and she was serious about going back to school. So that's when I was at boarding school, and my sister lived with my gran when she was 2 weeks old, because she had to finish her teaching degree and because she wanted to teach. And that's what she did. And that, for us, my sister and I, just showed us that truly, truly it can be done, because she did it for us ultimately. So out of all my cousins, I'm the first to graduate.
Well done.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm the first to graduate and the first to go to a model C school, because part of my mom's sacrifices was she wanted to send me to Queenstown Girls, so that she always says, I wanted you to do better and to get better. And back to what would I say to the village child, I think that's another thing my mom taught me. She's a teacher, and she was a principal for 20 odd years. And her passion has always been that. I think, it's never too late to go back. Things happen, we make mistakes. Circumstances, our own family situations sometimes don't allow us to do what it is that we would like to do. I think just to say, you don't have to be defined by your situation,
your background, your upbringing,
your mistakes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's our mistakes that make us not do these things. So you're not defined, you're not in a box. And to say that it's not too late, no matter where you are, no matter your age, you can today decide to step out in faith and to do it, and to say it's possible. I mean, here we are, 2 village girls, gone to town, to schools there, so it's possible.
I like what you say about normalize being your biggest cheerleader and supporter. You also say on your life coach Instagram account, your future is filled with hope and possibilities. I like that so much. And as we wrap up, won't you please give someone listening out there who think their future is hopeless and possibilities are null and void? Encourage our viewers, encourage that girl child, that teenager, and that older woman, that they can do it. It is possible. And I always say, with God, all things are possible.
They are.
With God, all things are possible. And so encourage us as we wrap up, and give us some kind of hope.
I think I always go back to this. The first thing I'd say is nothing is too much for God. And that God can meet us where we are, as we are. And ultimately it begins with that vulnerability with God, and going to Him, and trusting Him with our pain and our struggles, and trusting that He will ultimately get us through it. And I think even those things that I'd written on my page about your future is full of possibilities. Life is about mindset. And that's where I operate from. And that's what actually, when you're a life coach, that's what you do. We say that it begins with what you believe. So if anything, I would say that you've got to believe that you're going to succeed. You've got to believe that possibilities are out there. Right now, it might not be the case. Right now, you might not see it. But you have got to believe that no matter what happens, no matter what is thrown at me, I will make it. I will succeed. I can. And I will. I cannot just can, but I will as well. And that takes you far. So hold on to hope, and just keep working, and just keep pushing, and just be yourself. I always say, be yourself, enjoy life. I'm all about enjoying life. Enjoy the ride, and enjoy where it takes you ultimately.
I love that. I love that. Lelethu, thank you. Thank you for coming to share. I just want you to keep on talking and talking, and I just want to listen to you and listen to the hope that you bring and give. And I've learned so much today from you, and I want to thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, won't you please like, share, and subscribe? And we see you next time on the set of My Story.